I made a statement about why do we believe that 1 + 1 = 2.
Okay.
Man, the internet roasted me so hard on this one, bro. Everyone was just like, this is such an idiotic argument. Like, what are you saying?
Is it?
I don't know.
Have you ever added 2 drops together? What happens when you add 2 drops of water?
Okay. So here was what I was saying.
Okay, I want to hear it now.
As a first grader, when you know nothing, you have to believe on pure faith that your teacher, when they say 1 + 1 = 2, that is correct. Now, the argument that someone made on YouTube in the comments was, if I have an apple and I grab another apple, that makes 2 apples. I get what they're saying. That's not my point. My point is, you don't even, as a first grader, if you don't know until someone teaches you for the first time ever, you don't know what 2 is.
Right.
You don't know that this plus this is 2. You don't know what that is. So maybe I'm talking about language now and not actually mathematics.
Okay.
Maybe. I don't know.
I don't know. You're the one trying to make the point.
Yeah. Welcome back to another episode of the Rome's Room podcast, where we discuss education, careers, and show you that ordinary people can do extraordinary things. As always, I'm your host, Jerome, and welcome to my room. Quick reminder, you can catch us on all podcast platforms, Apple, Spotify, CastBox, or watch the video version on youtube.com/JeromeVaz. So make sure to subscribe and hit that notification bell so you don't miss any future videos. In episode 9 today, we've got a co-host who is a good friend of mine. He is an athlete. He is a software engineer and my self-described spiritual leader. Welcome to the show, Daniel Enciso.
Wow, thank you, Jerome. I'm happy to be here. That last one surprised me, man.
Yeah?
I
you are,
expected
man.
that. I expected the athlete. I expeced the software engineer, but spiritual leader, I'm humble.
Because you're my spiritual leader, and I feel like that needs a little bit of some spiritual beverages.
Yes.
We've got some wine here today.
Where's this wine from, bro?
This is from the
Cheers.
This is from the Napa Valley. No, I'm just kidding. I have no idea.
Valley?
This is from Costco.
Costco
is where this wine's from.
Let's see how Costco tastes.
I was very aware of the fact that I was like holding this wine glass with my thumb up on the side, and I was just the entire time I was taking a sip of that, I was like, wow, my dad is gonna be like, why are you holding? Say something? Yeah, he's gonna be like, why are you holding it like an absolute idiot?
You know, like the funny thing is, I know we're going into how to hold wine glasses, but I think that the funny thing that happened to me when I was getting acquainted with showing up, drinking, we'd have the little small glasses, stemless glasses.
Yes.
Right? And so those were around, but I never knew that because you chilled this wine once in a while,
right?
You didn't want to affect the temperature. Now, I don't know, we're not going to get into this because,
neither of us are, exactly.
But I know that it matters, and if we were cooling this wine, which we did not, chilling this wine, but yeah, this is, I guess, the proper way.
Well, so it's interesting that you bring that up because, a traditional wine snob, which I would personally put my father in that category a little bit.
Connoisseur.
Yeah. Okay. Apologies, father. Not snob. Connoisseur.
I got you. Mr. Voss.
They would say that you're correct. A stemless glasses is not traditional because it adds extra heat to the wine and that changes the flavor.
The reality is who invented the stemless glass? Are they trying to save money, or is it actually because it's for a specific purpose?
It's a good question. I think it's just modernization. I think it just looks. I think it just looks nice.
It looks nice.
You know.
Okay.
It's convenient.
Yeah.
It's more stable. Maybe.
True.
But how's it going, man? How you been feeling here in Arlington, Virginia? Also, little quick sidebar. This is the first episode of the Rome's Room podcast that is actually being filmed in my room. Every other episode. Well, technically, there was one episode that I filmed in my old apartment in Richmond. Outside of that one, it's always been on the road traveling because, when you don't have a budget for a show, you got to travel to your guests.
Exactly,
you know what I mean?
Dude. No, I think that's awesome, actually.
But thank you for coming here.
Yeah.
Being here with me in Arlington.
Absolutely.
How are you liking it?
So I've been to DC a few different times in my life. Actually, the first solo trip I've ever taken the final destination before I returned back back to Johnson City was DC.
Oh, really?
And so I've passed through Arlington, and it wasn't through until I had some other friends here a few years ago where I've gotten to know it. I never knew what like Nova meant by like, I think that's like when you're in with the crowd here, everybody says Nova, right? Like you grow up here, high school, you go to DC for work, or you go to school up here, and Arlington's part of Nova,
Arlington's
correct?
Nova.
Yeah. And so I mean it's quiet in the right sense. So it's not like a full blown city. You can get some kind of break from all the activity that you have in DC, whether it's the politicians or all the tourists or just the normal like city life. Like, I mean, this past weekend there was a baseball game, and so I've enjoyed it. I think the weather has been excellent. Like it's been warm,
incredible.
but you know I'm used to like Texas and Florida and all of that.
And
so
to clarify,
phenomenal.
when Daniel says that it's not a full-blown city, it's because you have lived in the city of cities, New York City.
Yes.
Currently live in Austin, Texas.
Correct.
Both significantly larger cities than here.
Yeah, absolutely.
That being said, Arlington, I think, if I'm not mistaken, is the largest city in Virginia.
Yeah.
And of course, like DC's right there, and DC probably does give you a little bit more of that like proper city life.
Right.
I agree with you. I do like it here because it's a little bit more suburban. It's a little quieter than DC proper, but it's like close enough to where you can go get that city lifestyle whenever you want.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
You know?
And I've been to other cities too, like Sao Paulo, which is also really big, and I was born in Bogota, and that's like a massive city. Like my dad thought I was it's not like crazy, but like he grew up there, lived his whole life there. When he found the beautiful beaches of West Florida, he was like, this is where I wanted to stay. They did end up going to the Nashville area for a good portion of our lives, but yeah, because I didn't grow up in that, then I'm like, I'm gonna be in the cities. I'm gonna be there, and that's why I've gone to places like London and and I've been to a bunch of other major cities. So it's never to belittle a place. Like these are cities, but the scale changes, right? The scale changes.
And every place has its own unique thing,
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Well, yeah, and sometimes it centers around food a lot. Like, and when I was on one of my trips through DC, I stopped in Philly to get a Philly cheesesteak.
Nice. Did you go to the OG?
There was one place I can't remember. I'd have to grab my phone, but there's like one particular place that I went to. This was during the pandemic. So it was very interesting just picking up and leaving.
Right.
Like
I
pandemic pickups were always like, you go. You don't go for the experience in the restaurants anymore.
Exactly. Different kind of experience. Well, to give the people a little bit of background on our relationship, we've known each other from college.
Yes.
Both started off computer engineering at the University of Tennessee.
Correct.
So, kind of started off taking those same classes, both in the honors college. We'll get into that a little bit later because you were a different tier of honors college, let's call it.
Just a different section, I would say.
Sure.
Yeah.
Humble man here. Humble man. No. You were a different tier, man. I know. Okay. The second that my mom hears this conversation, she's gonna be like, "No, you were in the honors college too, Jerome." And I'm like, "Yeah, it's different. We'll get it. We'll get there. We'll get there. But even before we get to college, we do have a thing that connects us. High school.
Yeah.
High school soccer.
Yeah.
We both played high school soccer for public high school teams.
Yes.
And ironically, before we ever knew each other, your high school soccer team, our junior year, 2013, played my high school soccer team in the Tennessee State semifinals.
Yeah.
Beat us, I believe 3-1 or 3-0, one of the two.
Yeah, I can't remember if you guys were.
Wow.
No. I'm just saying I can't remember.
Dude. I mean, honestly, I wasn't on the team I wasn't on the varsity squad at that point, so it's not my fault. If they didn't score, it's not on me.
I do remember one of my teammates a particular goal. I think that game was. I know the next game, the Farragut game, was also really complicated. But this, I think they're with soccer normally, football for that first goal is always the most complicated one because like usually the level of fitness matches, right? And for the most part, nobody's tired. When nobody's tired, what ends up happening is that there's either just a lot of passing around, a lot of exchange of possession.
Big stalemate.
Yeah, mentally, it's a psychological.
Right.
All sports are psychological
Right.
at the end of the day, and so yeah, whenever I think our teammates scored, that's when like the gates opened.
Yeah.
But because I remember like Maryville like had like big players, like like size wise, like I'm not a
actually
big guy,
that year
I'm not a big guy.
That year was the first year that our varsity team had ever made it to the state championship.
Oh shit. Okay.
It was rare for us to be in that on that like stage.
I would say the same for us, but I can tell more of the history behind Franklin. Yeah.
Well, I mean, you know, obviously you guys went on to beat us in the semifinals, beat another team from my district in the finals, and then won the state title that year.
Yes.
Won the state title the following year as well.
Correct.
You know, okay, relax.
You got the facts right. You got the facts
right. And so we never. I don't know. I don't think it's that we were bad. We certainly had a lot of really good players. I don't know how much I want to get into this. I personally never thought. I'll say this. I never thought it was because the players were bad. I'll leave it at that.
What, the loss?
Or Maryville just as a team. I never thought the reason we didn't win our games at that level was because our players were bad.
Oh,
I think
okay.
there
I see what
were
you're saying, like the coaching and everything.
I didn't say it. You said it.
Okay.
I didn't say it. You said it.
The management.
The management of the team was, yeah. I think it did a disservice to the talent on the team, is what I'll say.
I mean, I think to take it to the professional level, I think one of the biggest stories about like when you lose a manager, what happens is Manchester United and Sir Alex Ferguson, right? Yeah. Immediately when he left, they still had a decent amount of talent, and it just wasn't the same. But you know, you depended on a guy and his team for 20 years. Yeah, so it could have happened for this.
Right. I mean, I completely agree. I mean, you know, yeah. I don't want to get too much into it. So sure. That's it.
But yeah, so like it is crazy that you went to Maryville because I moved to Tennessee halfway through high school due to my dad finding a job in Nashville. He was already working with a company in Florida, and so he ended up getting a promotion, and that's a whole story of like what it means to move your family, because I think at the time when that was occurring, I understood the reason why we were moving and why it was important to our family. So I didn't like make a big deal about like my life changing.
Yeah. But that had to have been hard for you as, you know, halfway through high school, you're 15, 16, you have a bunch of really close, like tight-knit friends at that point.
Yeah,
like,
totally.
It's not easy. I mean.
Yeah, I agree. I just understood the mission. I talked to my mom a lot. I like, in general, like have like just conversations with my mom, but also to understand the background of like, because my dad had like 2 jobs growing.
Yeah.
While I was growing up, and all of that, then talking about like why is this transition important? It just made it like really simple for me. Yeah, we're gonna find a soccer team. Right. We'll find a school. You just basically keep doing what you're doing in a different location. Yeah. Right. And so it wasn't that easy, but I still remember me at 16-year-old thinking, yeah, I mean, this is what must be. This is what must be.
I guess what about like friends and stuff though? Like having to leave those people behind and kind of start fresh. You're in terms of like your social circle.
Well, I don't know if I necessarily minded it. I mean, I did have like close friends, and we were just starting to get the ability to socialize in our own right, meaning like we have our driver's license and all that. And I knew, I mean, like that coastal life, being so close to the beach, the hangouts are different, man. Like my brother and sister finished high school in Florida, so like their hangouts were different.
Explain that, because they're both younger.
They moved back. They moved back, and then they moved back, and so it's a lot of movement. And I would say it was on my mind, but you kind of like have to continue.
Adapt. You have
to continue. And like I found like a good group of friends. Right. I found a good group of friends mainly through soccer, and then through school. I was in the IB program over at Franklin High School, and so like that I met some good friends, and time gets so busy with with the academics, with the playing soccer, like I would always like be tired
Yeah.
and busy.
And to clarify, one thing, IB in the high school sense, only because there's a lot of people on this channel that
Okay.
listen to content about investment banking. IB is what? International Baccalaureate, right?
Yes, program.
It is, from my understanding, essentially one level above AP.
I think in a sense it's
Or just
another
different.
option. Yeah, it's different in the sense of sometimes schools I think combine AP and IB
Okay.
curriculums, but it's a separate curriculum to get a diploma that is available to IB schools throughout the globe.
Yeah.
And so then once you get the diploma, it's almost like a standardized way of saying you've taken IB chemistry, thus you're passing the same things, and then it's a diploma that validates you in an international
on
sense.
an international scale. Okay,
Yes.
because AP is a USA specific type of curriculum.
And there's no AP diploma.
Right.
Right. It's
Right.
a advanced placement
Yeah,
course
right.
that gives you college credits.
Exactly.
Which IB also does. But on top of that, you take other courses. You develop. It's been such a while, but there was like a paper that you.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
Interesting.
and all of that. And,
Yeah, 'cause Franklin-
and you have a theory of knowledge class
Yeah.
as well, and so there's a full suite of things that
Interesting.
Community service and
Right.
all of that, which
Oh,
helps with college.
interesting. Yeah, it does.
All of this stuff like helps.
It does. Because Franklin was like a top-notch high school, public high school in Tennessee.
Correct.
You know, I
it was.
can't remember the exact number, but, you know, certainly top 10.
Yeah. I think there were some other
Maryville was
schools,
close. Maryville was, I want to say when I went there, Maryville was, call it top 15 in the state of Tennessee, which was really good. Other schools like Farragut, you mentioned, that you played them in
I
soccer.
think
They were in the top 10.
MBA, like all guys schools.
What is MBA?
MBA, I don't know what it stands for, but
Okay.
there's
There's a
Nashville.
school called-
yeah,
okay,
yeah.
in Nashville.
And there might have been some Davis County schools because Franklin's
yeah.
like Williamson County.
Got it.
And then,
Got it.
Yeah.
I know we had a friend in college, Dev, who went to, I want to say, high school or something, also in that area.
Oh,
One of the
really? You
smartest-
went out there?
Yeah, one of the smartest guys that I know.
I'm pretty sure I was zoned for, but because IB and
Yep,
and
it's like
all
better
that.
opportunities and stuff.
Yeah.
I get that. Well, okay. Kind of to go back for a second, you know, we mentioned how you know, athletically speaking, very gifted, 2 state championships, you know, always had that kind of competitive mindset.
For sure.
Do you think that comes? I guess we didn't mention this previously. You are originally born in Colombia and then came here, you know, when you were very young, similar to me.
Yeah.
You moved to the U.S. when you were 4. I
Yeah,
moved here when I was
yeah.
about 6 or so.
Right.
So do you think that kind of like competitive drive comes from partially from that immigrant mindset of like, because we're coming from somewhere else, there's no option but success. Like we have to win.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Even more so, I think when money's tight. So like, money's tight in the sense of, yes, there's food on the table, and yes, there's a place to sleep. But you know, playing soccer is like an extracurricular. To use a common term that like kind of emphasizes the fact that it's a choice.
Yeah.
Right. And I think a lot of people with that background, meaning like it's not a hobby or for fun. It could be potentially a way to like make a lot of money, and it's also just like something that you need to take seriously because again, your parents are driving you to the games. It's far,
right? It's a use of everyone's time.
Yeah. Like
you know?
I'm talking about like we play games maybe near Orlando, so now an hour and a half away from Tampa, and you're waking up early and so like there's the whole thing like where conversations with the parents or like my dad. So I think it's partly maybe the kind of way we immigrated, right? It's not like we were a certain kind of expat or like we had like property over here and over there. I think that's because other people move in that sense.
Yeah.
So totally, I think it's the economic situation determines how hard you focus on the things that you take time in, right? And I think that's what happened with soccer, especially because outside of that, focusing in school was also very serious. Yeah. Like it just simply was because my parents were educated in Colombia, so they had their degrees and all of that, but transitioning over here, that wasn't as valid in the sense of like my dad had to work other jobs to then eventually get to a place
Well,
where he,
so-
could
Yeah.
work in what he wanted.
It's-
you got to pay your. It's partly you got to pay your dues. Some people
Yeah.
might disagree, but I mean you
Well,
are in a different place.
this is funny.
We are
Last
in a different
night,
place.
we were watching that Hassan Minhaj stand-up special where
Yeah.
he talks about, the American dream tax.
Sure.
Like you just pay it, and that's what you have to do
Mm-hmm.
as an immigrant to be here. But
I see what you're saying. Yeah.
it's just like one of those things that
Depends on where you
have to
immigrate
do.
from.
It's
I bet
true.
you if we were maybe, I don't know if the Far East has like really, really good schools, but maybe we'd have to go to like European schools. But even then, I don't know.
Yeah,
I don't know.
I'm not 100% certain, but
I'd have
you
to
said,
ask some Europeans who've immigrated to find out if
You
those
said
schools are
something
valid.
that was a little interesting. You said,
Yeah.
in terms of like academics, like the expectation was to be like very talented, not even talented, to be successful.
Well, excellence in
Excellence,
what you do.
yes.
Yeah, so like just
So,
excellence.
I have always talked about this on this channel, on different podcasts that I've had on this channel, this idea, and it's always come up in the perspective of Indian culture.
Sure.
And how Indians put a lot of pressure on their kids, whether that is here as immigrants or back in India.
Yeah.
There's a lot of pressure to be excellent. I have always felt that pressure is heightened here in the U.S. because it's like, oh, we came all this way, we're not going back. Like you
I
have
see
to
what
do
you're
well.
saying. Yeah.
So I've always talked about this idea of like this pressure to be excellent. So as a Colombian immigrant,
Mm-hmm.
you're saying kind of similarly, you've also kind of felt that pressure of like, you have to be excellent.
Yeah, I mean, I'm also the oldest, right? And so
So you have to kind of set an example for your siblings as well.
yeah, and I think it's everything else is taken care of, man. That's the thing. And then so a lot of people say, but like there's other ways to like make money in the world
Yeah.
or like other talents. Either way, then you need to be excellent in that. So like the thing is like a lot of people will start bickering about school being just like this whole mechanism to make you
Yeah.
fit into these roles. If you want to think about it, like, yeah, it can be like that.
Yeah.
But if you're excellent at what you do, and that's what the parents are pushing for, but the likelihood in other realms, it just becomes harder.
Yeah.
If you're excellent in school, there's because that's the system, as like what a lot of people say.
Right.
And then it's tough, and I get that, but
And you only have so
you
much
know,
time to focus
right.
and dedicate on different crafts.
Right, right. And I think sometimes it comes off where it's when you see the end result of that perseverance through time, people
Yeah.
will be like, oh, of course it makes sense.
Yeah.
But like, I didn't speak English when we moved here.
Yeah.
Like I learned it like around like kindergarten, and I had a focus to sound like this.
Yeah.
You know, like literally,
Yeah, yeah.
I'm not even joking. And I think because of where I've been and what I've learned, like then, because we just associate, like I've even heard this, like somebody hears my voice, it doesn't necessarily match with what you would picture. And all I'm trying to say with that is that with any kind of endeavor, you just really have to be like, what do you want from it? What do you
Yes.
want from it?
Yeah.
And then you just run it.
Right.
And then that's the thing for me where it's like, it just happened to be either soccer, or the academics. And I really tried,
Yeah.
like I can go through the whole history, but like I was gonna try to play in college, but but it didn't work out. But a lot of the guys that I played with in high school, both in travel, high school, Florida, and in Tennessee, they ended up D2, D1,
Yeah.
D3, all
Yeah.
of that. And like these guys, they're ballers, right?
Right.
Like in their own right. And even like some of the guys that I played with against, extended in different states, but few make it, and
Yeah,
like
100%.
it's difficult. Like at the end of the day, the reason why like countries are powerhouses in certain sports is because you have the numbers. It's a numbers game of like how many, in our case, like men will push the bar higher for each other. Because that's the whole point. Like that's why we end up like celebrating like the Kobe or like the Messi, because like one guy like with the pool of talent decided and maybe just had the talent but also worked and then just showed up better than the rest of us.
Yeah.
And you
And
gotta
now it
respect
pushes
that.
the rest of the
and
people,
then, and then
though.
you just gotta respect that, and then and you gotta admit when like you can't hang anymore.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like
Yeah.
you gotta admit when you can't hang anymore. But I think that's the exciting thing, because if we all just were like, oh, I didn't make it and like this sport sucks, or man, they didn't pick me because of that. Like I think like that's like that was the point of trying, dude. Like to
Yeah.
find out if you to what extent you can go, and
Yeah.
then it's still like the friendships and the
Right.
experiences. And
Right.
the losses, the wins, and all that. You know?
Yeah,
So it's
100%, 100%. Well, okay, to step outside the athletic realm for a second,
Sure.
go back to academics, because I love this conversation, by the way, but I'm realizing we're about 15 minutes into this episode.
Yeah.
We haven't even gotten into your history.
Yeah, the
right?
academic history.
Which is what people want to know. I really think it's super interesting getting into this young adult mindset. How do you become an adult? How do you pursue the career that you want to pursue? How do you, and the struggles that come with that, right?
Totally.
And so kind of when you were approaching that college graduation age, you said you kind of had that conversation with yourself, like, I'm not going to play college soccer.
Yeah,
right?
it's not going to happen.
It's not going to happen.
It's not going to happen. Yeah.
I had that conversation with myself significantly earlier than you when I was a junior in high school and I was still on the JV team.
Right.
I was like, nah, this isn't going to take me that far.
Yeah.
So all that to say, you're spending a lot of time focusing on your craft in soccer. You're spending a lot of time focusing on your craft as a, intellect and a, education. So when you were coming to graduation time, looking at these different colleges, looking at different opportunities and stuff, again, you went to a top public high school in Tennessee. You had this international baccalaureate program that really prepared you well for a college degree.
Right.
Were you looking at, a vast number of options for college, or kind of going back to that, money was kind of tight conversation? Was it like, I need to pick an in-state university that's going to give me in-state tuition, and I'm just going to try my best at that university?
Yeah.
I guess simplified, that question is essentially,
this is great.
What kind of universities were you looking at? What was kind of your mindset going through that college application process?
No, this is great. So, one of the key points about what you said is like money on my mind kind of deal, where I'm thinking about how is this going to affect my family, the dynamics.
Because it's important, you have two siblings as well.
This is a background thing that I don't even think I've ever publicly said it. But one of the reasons why I didn't end up choosing a soccer path where I could have joined an academy.
Yeah.
If you've heard, did you hear about when they had academy for travel soccer, academy clubs and all of that?
Yeah. What, are you talking about a academy feeder club into an MLS team?
But some of them didn't even belong to MLS teams. Some MLS teams have academy teams. But one of the teams did want me, and I didn't. Due to I think what it was going to cost my family.
Yeah.
Now, was that a mistake, or should I done that and then tried harder?
As you always say, everything is as it should be.
Yes, correct.
Right now.
Yeah, and that's going to be a theme probably throughout our conversations. Long story short, I did take that into account with the undergrad university option. For the most part, I applied to just state schools in the South. I thought about maybe going out to the West Coast and maybe UT Austin. The only big school that I applied to was Columbia. And I just mentioned that just to you have dreams, wild dreams, and all that.
No, you're trying to flex on.
Yeah.
You're trying to flex on all these people.
We can just say it didn't work out.
Okay.
Didn't get in, and I applied to other. Just finding out what programs could give me a decent amount of money.
Right.
What program gave me the degree, which is another option, right?
Yeah.
So a lot of people will choose a school based on location. What's the vibe? Who am I going to be around? What are your friends?
For sure.
All of that, and then I eventually, always though, remembered what degree and what college can I get into, right? And so.
Now, how important was the degree aspect in the college selection?
Pivotal, bro, because that was going to be what you lock into.
Yeah.
I think that's one of the things where I had other examples, and this can kind of just show you in the home, the kind of conversations, once you kind of make that decision, you decide and you just live it. Now, I know this isn't to say that everybody needs to do that, but I knew when I locked into that, it's I'm going to finish it.
And it's a hard decision.
Yeah, and no, it was a constant decision.
Yeah.
Right, because I had my
You're
moments of doubt and struggle, and I'm am I going to
I
pass this
certainly
class?
did.
Am I going to pass this class? I don't understand this stuff. So this isn't to say oh wow, I made a decision and it was a nice cruising, and no, absolutely not. I got kind of suggested to enter into a field where the money would make sense.
Yeah.
But even more so, I still remember not the moment, but my dad discussing with me of like, the important thing is to learn to think a certain way. So, and I'll just take a step back to briefly just say this in a few concise sentences. It's like talking in English and living in America helps you think a certain way. Speaking like a Colombian from a specific city or town helps you think a certain way. Like playing soccer helps you think a certain way. Like people talk about like, you can make all kinds of like maybe metaphors, but analogies of like when you play a game of soccer and you're thinking about like how to attack, how to defend, when to rest, like you can use all of these things. Engineering, that's what my dad really tried to say. It's like, yeah, you can think about the money, you can think about like job security, but really what you wanted to do is get that framework that engineers have to think. And that's something I didn't have.
Right.
You know, that's something I didn't have because, why? Because I didn't go through the degree program.
Yeah.
So that really then became, okay, so I want to think like an engineer. Why? I mean, we could get into all the sensible things, but I just wanted to step into that space.
But it wasn't because you were like a tinkerer and you were super interested in computers,
Nah, I'm not like that. I'm not like that. Not because it's just I was already so focused in on like being a great student and then trying my best to be a great athlete. And
it was
there's only so many hours in the day. You know what I'm saying?
Interesting, because it was almost like you were identifying something that you felt was missing in your skill set, and you were like, that's what I want.
Precisely.
I need that skill.
Precisely.
So I'm going to attack it. Which, when you think about that high level, it's like you chose to make your college life more difficult. Or you challenged yourself.
Yes. Totally.
Because it was a skill set that you didn't have, didn't necessarily come like naturally, or you didn't already possess that.
Yeah.
That's very like admirable. You know, a lot of people I think would not do that and would choose to go the, call it quote unquote easy route. Not that any route in college is necessarily easy.
Easy I would say easy for them.
Yes.
So then we can even make it more specialized, because a lot of the times people will be like, well, of course, you know, you have I don't know if it's called predisposition, but you're prepared enough because maybe you've taken a lot of math. It's going to be easy for you.
Yeah.
But like the thing is, like,
I mean, we went to school with a bunch of people who, just knowing them, like, I mean, they were just so naturally talented at things that we had never been exposed to before.
Exactly. Yeah. There you go. And so I knew that and there were hopes for, like, I guess, like, you know, job security, you can be independent, don't have to be a burden to the family, all of this stuff. Not like a bad burden, but like you can contribute, you can do your part. Like, we don't know what that means. I could tell you examples of like now in hindsight.
Yeah.
But yeah, so, and then it just became into like what part of engineering, because it's vast.
Yeah. Right.
And I don't want to like, I took like 3 years straight of chemistry, different levels, like honors, AP, IB.
Could have done chemical engineering.
So I could have done that. I was almost like going to go on a medical route, but didn't want to do that. And I, you know, just went down the list, and computers, the idea of just the scalability of it all. But I didn't know what that actually means. So I just wanted to understand, like, because like you think about like the devices that we use, like how do you like manufacture those, or how do you even design a UI? Like, I don't know. I just wanted to be like, okay, I need I need a seat at the table, and I need a seat at the table. Like that's all I think about. Like when I did my interviews to get into the scholars programs, I learned enough to know that this is who I wanted to develop into. And so that's what I bought into, and that's what I talked about. And I convinced myself that is who I wanted to choose to be during that time frame, which doesn't abandon any other aspect of like my identity at that point already, who I chose to be. But it was like, it's like what we said, like another skill set, another life experience, 100%, exposure. 100%. And so that mattered to me.
Similar to how you're talking about this conversation that you had with your dad, I had a similar but different conversation with my dad when I was in computer engineering.
Okay.
I kind of had this eureka moment at the end of our sophomore year.
Okay.
When I was very much like, I don't know if I need to continue with this degree, because I never was bad at coding. I was doing fine in those classes, all A's, but to your point, it wasn't coming naturally to me, and that was something that was very frustrating. The other stuff, math, physics, I was able to figure it out, and it felt natural. the coding felt very just difficult to me, you know?
Okay.
And
Yeah.
so I started having these doubts of like, oh, computer engineering, like, is this what I'm meant to be doing? So I had this conversation with my dad where I was like, you know, I don't know what I should be doing. I don't know if I should continue with this path or, you know, change, go to a different degree, whatever.
Right.
And in that conversation, his advice to me was, well, you know, like computer engineering is a very niche part of engineering.
Correct. Yeah, that's right.
If you do electrical engineering, you can get potentially this more general knowledge. And if you still, at the end of your degree, choose that you want to do computer engineering because that's what you're passionate about, that's what you're interested in, you can still get that opportunity.
Yeah.
However, if you do just computer engineering and then at the end of it you decide you don't like this, there may not necessarily be an opportunity to do anything else in electrical engineering, if that makes sense.
That does make sense. Yeah.
It's like the whole concept of like, you know, a rectangle is a square, but a square is not a rectangle, right? And so I had that conversation with him, and then for me, I was ultimately like, yeah, you know what? I think you're right. I want to go the generic route, and I switched.
Right.
Luckily for me, I switched early enough in my degree that I didn't lose any of my classes. No, literally 0 credits lost. Everything transferred perfectly. And I was able to continue on and still graduate in 4 years, and everything worked out.
So that was good.
Yeah, like it was good. But I say that to say, you know, for the people that are listening here, there are multiple paths. You don't have to, you know, because we talk about as an
Right.
18-year-old, it's really difficult to make that decision and know that you're making the right decision. You're never going to know that you're making the right decision.
Yeah.
And there's opportunities to change and switch without, you know, blowing up your life.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Yes. Yeah.
And I think a lot of people get scared by that thought of, oh, like I can't switch, I'm stuck, I have to do this. And it is a really important decision. But I think a lot of people get scared of that and then end up finishing with a degree that they're not 100% satisfied with.
Yes. And I think to add to that, like the thought that you were bringing to my mind is, what is the point of going there, man? Like, again, I think it's to learn to think a specific way, which can be combined with a trade.
Yes.
You see, like a lot of the times, like, and I'm not a historical scholar of why universities came into existence, but we know that they were places of thought, of like learning, of like challenging ideas. Now there's this whole economic mechanism. It costs a lot of money. They're trying to get, you know, more people to go to the schools. There are scholarships, but you know, it's difficult. So I think the trick is if you can identify how you want to think, and if you can align the trade, then university, and which university, you know, you can find that. And I think if you take the time to think about it like that, like really, then you can realize that you don't have to chase a school that somebody else went to. You don't have to chase a degree that somebody else went to. Yes, we could say that, oh, universities cost too much and all of that.
Right.
But it's like how the other people will probably try to work to change that. But in the meantime, from a practical sense, you need to find out like what's gonna fit with you.
Yeah.
And I think that's
100%.
probably like the most difficult thing to decide.
100%.
Because all the macro issues, right?
Yes.
Macro issues.
Yes.
Right.
And okay, so one thing that I wanted to get into was the scholars program.
Yeah.
So we mentioned earlier at the beginning of this episode how we were both in the honors program at the University of Tennessee, but you were in an upper echelon of honors. And the difference there is you were in a program called the Haslam Scholars, which, correct me if I'm wrong, was about 10 to 20 specific students. The honors college, for example, had 100 plus students.
Yeah.
And it was essentially just like GPA/ACT score based. It truly wasn't even like an application. It was, if you met a certain criteria, you were in the honors college, as long as you opted into that.
Right.
The Haslam Scholars was a separate application process, interview process, and it was literally a group of 10 to 20 people, correct? So literally the top of the top. Now, my question to you is, being in that program, what do you think that did for your academic career, for your eventual, job prospects. Do you think that really added a ton of value, or was it more so a holistic approach of teaching you how to be, how to have like a more holistic view on adult life upon graduation? You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think, I don't think it's an either or. So what I would characterize it as was from, I think, terms that might make sense to somebody like looking at schools.
Yeah.
Was like more of a liberal arts kind of education. So that's like high level.
Yeah.
Like, tip of the iceberg. But it was holistic because of the fact that everyone had different majors. They came from different parts of the state.
Right, it wasn't just engineers.
And out of state. Yeah, exactly. Right. Not just engineers. Different ethnicities, nationalities, everything.
Right.
Everything.
Right.
Everything. And what that means then is an absolute acceleration. Acceleration to the exposure of the diversity in the world, like true diversity. And what I mean by that is not just like true diversity in the whole sense. So yes, you look different, but also you think different.
Yeah.
You have different dreams and aspirations. And so I have deep admiration, deep respect for all of those people, especially like as you got away from being young and just being so focused on like, I just need to finish my classes.
Right.
I need to feed myself today.
Right.
All of this stuff. That program, including the formal classes, but also the people, it's just actually incredible that you have the time to get that kind of exposure. Because the only way you do that is by being brave outside of a systemic.
Yes.
Hey, you're going to be in class with these people.
Right.
And so I think for me, the whole curriculum was really important. Like the first 2 years, you have classes with them, totally different from the engineering. Like nothing to do with just like, hey, you got to understand like these physical properties.
And it's a lot of like discussion-based classes, right? Like where people are exchanging like ideas, opinions,
and it gets it's not
because I think the easy trap that a lot of college students fall into is, yes, college overall is a very diverse experience, right?
Sure.
Especially if you come from like a small town and where everyone is like similar or whatever.
Yeah.
But I think the easy trap to fall into is you go to college and then you make a clique or a group of friends that are all very similar.
Yeah,
I mean, truthfully, like I kind of fell into that trap a little bit, right? Like you were included in that group of friends. My closest 6 friends were all engineers, all electrical engineers, plus you did computer. And it was like, those were my core group of friends that I hung out with. Right. Unless I went and sought out, quote unquote, diversity outside of that, I wasn't going to get it.
Yeah.
You were almost forced into this incubator of like different types of ideas and opinions and whatever, Yes. You're getting the ideas of the English major that thinks, or, like however they think and feel, whatever.
Absolutely. And it's different. It was called a cohort, and there's different cohorts, right? Like, so I start my freshman year, but there were sophomore, juniors, seniors.
Right.
That's the proper way. First year, second year, third year, fourth year. I'm not getting confused on how we did that, but yes, precise. Like it's exactly that. Like, and within each of those cohorts, everybody's just different. Everybody, all these levels,
and there's
like
this level of respect for all those people, right? Because
I think
you're all going through something similar.
Well, in the end, I think that but when you're in this, you're so young, like you're still affected by like college. Like high school, and thinking, you're in with these people and you're not in with these. That takes time, but it was a great experience to really learn what you are about, what you have yet to experience, what you have yet to see, and then your question, like going back to, how does that affect like the long term? Does that lead to like success in the world and all of that? I think it just depends on what kind of success you want to define for yourself. Yeah. And I think without, it's a program that is structured like that. There are donors, like the Haslams are creating this opportunity to get educated, because there is like not just like financial, like economic scholarships, but it's also like you are in an incubator. You are realizing that these are the kind of people that are going to lead certain spaces. Like some of them might be involved in
politics,
or latest medical advancements.
Yes.
Making
Become
a bunch
CEOs
of money. Nonprofits. And some other people just have their own pace to life. They don't want to prove anything, or not even prove anything, but pursue anything other than their own intellectual development, right? And some people, like in the honors program or any outside of the program, it's creating a mechanism for them to get educated and then just kind of like move on with their lives, right? And so I think for me, the one thing is that you start out with these big aspirations. You want to be this thing, and you get into this specific set, like this group, and then you think you're gonna like change the world, and you might, but it's like what ends up really changing, evolving, learning is you through like honestly like probably exposure that you wouldn't put yourself in normally, right? Because like I remember like thinking, okay, I'm taking these engineering classes. I need to figure stuff out.
Right.
I cannot hang with the people that get this a lot faster. Right. And so with that thought in mind, I'm like, wow, okay, now I have to context switch, and I'm like, we're talking about different, families, the way the structure, and everybody's like either sometimes very proud of their upbringing or some more challenges. And then, like, man, you learn to empathize. Maybe not on day one, but like, and then that's heavy.
The important part.
Because like the thing is, like, dude, the world will always be the world in the sense of we get that beautiful opportunity to just be like, I want to live life this way, or I want to make the world. But like, dude, we're not perfect, right? And so, and the ways that we learn how to like interact and do things, it's not always the best. There are better solutions, and there's ways to just relax, take back, and like learn from people. What I'm saying is like that program was just deeply like beyond just what we always have like complaints about like could things be done better, could things change. Of course, like people have opinions, but at the end of the day, man, like I am always I'm impressed by like you say you want to lead. Like I said, okay, I want to be involved in this computer engineering space, and like I would love to also be like not just a thought leader, but like somebody of action, a person of action, who then decides like I want to influence in this space, and I'm willing to learn about that. It's like, oh really? Yeah. Oh really? Do you really want to do that? Do you actually know what kind of people you'd be providing solutions for?
Right.
Like really, like because like it's not like just like people who look like me or think like me or have dreams like me. Like in the tech space, like you create Gmail, or you develop a new dating app, or you're developing payment processing systems, or whatever it is you're doing. Like all kinds of people are using it.
Right.
And
solutions
that's one
for
of the,
everyone.
Exactly. And medical, like okay, who cares? Like not who cares about tech, but like you can just take into the medical world.
Yeah.
Who do doctors need to deal with?
Everyone.
Yes. Politicians. It doesn't matter. Like lawyers, man. Writers. Who are you writing for? Anybody can pick up your book.
Yeah.
Anybody. And so like, damn, when you really realize that it is like about like developing humans.
Yeah.
Developing humans. Then you're like, oh wow, this program is different. And other universities have these programs too, not just like the private schools that like, might like cater to liberal arts educations. And I think that's what, that made the difference in the sense of how I communicate. Again, learning how to think as an engineer, learning how to think as somebody who exposes themselves constantly to new ideas.
Yeah.
I love being wrong.
Yeah.
Like, not like wrong in the sense of like, oh, something that like, I like learning where I previously had an idea and I was misguided. A new theory has come about, and through experimentation, I'm proved that, oh, this is a new way
Yeah.
of doing things.
Right.
You know, this is a new way of kicking the soccer ball. This is a new way of traveling.
Yeah.
This is a new way of like expressing myself.
Right. And, you know, it's interesting because you're saying not being wrong, like, oh, you.
I don't
want
to do a miscalculation.
Yeah, like 1 + 1 is 3 or whatever.
Yeah,
and
it's not that. It's not that.
Which, dude, I bring that up because I had an episode recently where I said, let's see if we can run this back. I had an episode recently. It was episode 3 of this podcast where I made a statement about why do we believe that 1 + 1 = 2.
Okay.
Man, the internet roasted me so hard on this one, bro.
They got all theoretical on you. And
No, man.
Some proofs.
I think I was just too theoretical. I don't think I explained it properly. And maybe I did explain it properly, but everyone was just like, "This is such an idiotic argument. Like, what are you saying?"
Is it?
I don't know.
Have you ever added 2 drops together? What does it What happens when you add 2 drops of water?
Okay. So
No. And I'm just saying this is for the entertainment purposes. I think this is like when you, again, learn how to think. 1 +
that's
1
my
in
whole
what
point.
context?
That's
1
my whole
+ 1 in
point.
what context?
So here was what I was saying.
Okay, I want to hear it now.
My
I'm gonna
point
have to go
was,
rewatch this.
as a first grader, right, you don't actually know from a theoretical, mathematical proof concept. And the example that I used was 1 + 1. But it can be applied to anything, like integrals or derivatives or, you know. Like, honestly, it probably applies better to these higher math topics. But
Okay.
the example that I used was 1 + 1. As a first grader, when you know nothing, right,
Yeah.
you have to believe on pure faith that your teacher, when they say 1 + 1 = 2, that is correct. Now, the argument that someone made on YouTube in the comments was, that's an idiotic statement, Jerome, because if I have an apple and I grab another apple, that makes 2 apples. I get what they're saying. That's not my point. My point is, you don't even, as a first grader, if you don't know until someone teaches you for the first time ever, you don't know what 2 is.
Right.
You don't know that this plus this is 2. You don't know what that is. So maybe I'm talking about language now and not actually mathematics.
Okay.
Maybe, I don't know.
I don't know. You're the one trying to make the point.
Yeah, but I'm saying you don't know that 1 + 1 = 2 until someone says that. Now,
Yes.
assume in an isolated vacuum for a second that your teacher tells you 1 + 1 is actually equal to 3, right? You have no knowledge of what a number system is. You have no knowledge of anything.
Now I'm locked in.
But someone teaches you that incorrectly.
I am locked in right now.
Incorrectly, someone teaches you as a first grader, as a 6-year-old, that you are a blank slate. Someone teaches you 1 + 1 is 3. They explain it to you. They prove it to you somehow, right? Now, all of a sudden, you don't know any better. Could you be raised to believe that 1 + 1 is 3? I believe the answer is yes, because
I see what you're saying.
because we are believing off of pure faith that 1 + 1 is equal to 2. It's the same concept
I see
of
where
the
you're
mathematical proof of 0.33 plus
Infinity?
0.33 plus 0.33 equals 1. Like 0.33 repeating, right? If
Yeah.
you do 0.33 repeating, that plus 0.33 repeating plus 0.33 repeating, what we know about numbers and math and whatever would tell you that would be equal to 0.999 repeating.
Sure.
Now, a certain type of person would tell you that 0.999 repeating is not necessarily equal to 1, that it is a different number.
Well, yeah, it's not.
Now, my question to you is what is the number for 1/3? What is the decimal equivalent of 1/3?
I mean,
it's 0.33 repeating.
No, it's 0.3, yeah, with the
repeating,
with the bar on it.
right? Yeah. What is the mathematical equivalent now of 1/3 plus 1/3 plus 1/3? It's equal to 1.
Yeah.
So now we've shown 2 completely separate ways of 0.33 repeating is equal to 0.99 repeating.
Yeah, this is good.
Which is equal to 1 repeating, you know?
I got you.
And they're different, but now there is a mathematical proof that they're the same, right? So my point in all of that is, if you don't have any idea at a very, very, very high level,
Okay.
as a young person that knows nothing, you have to act on pure faith that what someone is teaching you is correct. Now, all these people on the internet are telling me I'm wrong because they're just like, oh, well, you can prove that if you know number systems, like you can just prove that like 1 + 1 is 2. And I'm like, that's not my point.
Yeah, okay.
I'm not saying 1 + 1 is not equal to 2. I'm saying at the highest level, when you know nothing, you just have to operate on faith that what someone's teaching you is correct.
Yes, up to a point. I don't disagree, but there's this part, the beauty, like what scientists, probably physicists, would agree with the most is that what you can experiment, like prove via experiment, is tangible and real.
Yes.
What is real? And so while I'm sitting listening to it, listening to what you're saying, listening to
because it kind of makes sense.
No, well, what I'm saying is this concept of 3, we have given it in the English language.
Correct.
To specify 3 units.
Yes.
Of something.
Right.
If we then think about, if somebody's saying 1 + 1 is 3, it doesn't change
the number of units.
The real observation.
Yes,
so
correct.
Like math, like English or Spanish, should reflect reality. Now this gets into this, and what is reality? Then I think a lot of people, but like we could say like reality is this realm.
Yeah.
This realm. Yeah. And so I think the whole point of our language, of the languages that we've developed, one of the essential points, sorry, not the whole point, one of the essential points, it is to describe reality. And like, while we could, one of my great friends, and so shout out to him, I'll just say, he says semantics and narratives, right? And so like what you say, you can kind of just pick and choose to prove whatever point you want. But the beautiful thing is that reality kind of, or for the most part, doesn't need our permission. So we might want to say whatever it is.
Right.
But at the end of the day, if you drank all the wine from your glass, it's gone.
Right.
So
you're right.
If they're 2 units, and what I'm trying to say is it's just like we get to this level of like where we like try to mess around with semantics.
Yeah.
But the real like this is here.
Right.
I'm not like saying this and I'm not holding anything.
Right.
Right. And so I think when we say 1 + 1 is 2, is there are separate units that you're combining, but at the same time, like that's why like
it's this combination of math and language.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, like math is a language. Like it is a language to describe a certain like understanding of reality.
Right. And so maybe my argument is more of an argument on language, not an argument on math.
Perhaps, and it might not even be an argument, that we need to make in the sense of.
Yeah.
I was gonna take it so for something to be like useful because I'm thinking about like what we're talking about here, and I think one of the greatest struggles I had like with adopting this idea that I need to be an engineer, that I need to go work as a software engineer, which we haven't even touched base on.
I know.
If you want to play, you have to accept a few things. You have to like this is a language that you use, right? Like this is there are offside traps in soccer. Like you could bicker all I want. Like I want my forward to be able to stand there so he's closer to the goal so he can score. But like that's not the rules of the game. And so I think when, for example, we were graded on curves in some classes, some of the topics were extremely difficult to comprehend. One thing I really focus on is like you need to accept that this is the case. Like this is the case. If I want to have, for example, an original idea, which is why I love like the movie Beautiful Mind. I don't know if you ever watched it with Russell Crowe. Yeah, and he's like this guy. I think it's like John Nash or something. He's like trying to develop a new idea for economics, an original idea. Understand the governing dynamics of the world. This whole idea of like 1 + 1. I brought up the drops because like if you add 2 drops together, what do you see?
Right.
What does the human eye see?
Right.
Right.
Technically, 2 drops of water plus 2 drops of water One drop of water.
One drop of water. So precisely, our language isn't limited, but it serves a purpose in that sense.
Yeah.
But if our eyes, like our advanced devices, could see all the atoms of H2O, we know that it's not one atom of H2O, like a molecule,
it's
of
probably
H2O.
hundreds,
yeah.
millions.
Yeah, well, yeah, I don't know. Like, there's a calculation that we've forgotten.
Yeah, sure.
That we've. That's actually hilarious because I'm pretty sure we could calculate it based
probably
on
like atomic mass,
like the mass
and
all the grams and the weight of the water and the volume. But that's precisely what I'm trying to say. It's like, what are we trying to describe? Something that's real, something that's outside of, because the beauty of the human mind is like we can make up a lot of stuff, like the language. Like we also speak, like I speak Spanish, and like what other languages do you speak? Like let's tell
Japanese,
the people.
Tamil.
Yeah, and I also speak a little bit of Portuguese, and so but the thing is like all those languages also describe a real human experience and emotions and reality. Like a cup of water has a different way of saying this is un vaso de agua in Spanish. Like think about that.
And you know what's interesting?
Semantic, like it's just sounds.
Is
describing a real thing.
Yes, and the interesting part is that is why there's certain phrases, certain phenomenons in certain languages that don't have a exact translation in a different language.
Yes.
Because there's a way to describe reality and like what's happening in a certain language that doesn't exist in a different language.
Because reality wasn't experienced like that.
Yes.
Exactly.
And so you do your best to describe that situation in this different language, but you can't describe it in the exact same way because a direct translation doesn't exist.
Yes.
And that's what I'm talking about.
Yeah. And I would say that to add to that, that when you find out what the goal of the conversation is why common language is important, which is why we need to accept 1 + 1 is 2. Not because it's fun, to, like just what we're doing, but if we need to build a bridge, a program, if we need to teach like 2 strokes on the canvas, like at the end of the day, the common, like language is beautiful and it's crazy because it's like, dude, we make up stuff. Like we just do because it's our gift as humans to just like make up stuff all the time. But when we need common language to figure out emotions or real world, emotions are real world problems, but like other kinds of situations, then like that's when like we have to at some point be like, well, what are we trying to talk about? What are we trying to figure out? And I think that's like one of the things that like going back to like engineering, like I wanted to solve engineering problems, but I also wanted to be like, why do engineers need to think like this? Why do engineers build upon like this idea, okay, we're practically going to apply the solutions that mathematicians and physicists have like theorized, experimented with, and then practical solutions for entertainment, you know, like people like watching stuff on VR, on YouTube, video games, social media, like the soccer games that you watch, like from across the world, telecom. Like how do you build all this stuff? This stuff just doesn't happen, man.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Like build millions of humans. You know.
I completely agree. Well, I'm looking at the time here. And
dude, are we over, bro?
Listen, we have spent a lot of time talking about these hypothetical and theoretical situations, but I think this conversation has been incredible.
Okay.
What I'd like to do is continue this conversation next week. So, if you guys enjoyed this episode, make sure you subscribe to the channel, like this episode, and come back. Make sure you're watching next week. You can catch this podcast everywhere you get podcasts: Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Castbox. And yeah, make sure you tune back in, because we didn't touch on your career, your development as a young adult. We didn't touch on any of that. So a little teaser for next week. We're going to hit all those things and how you ended up officially becoming a software engineer.
Yeah.
And then maybe we'll talk about some of this, philosophical stuff a little bit more, because it's fun conversations. And I think it's conversations that people will enjoy.
Yeah, I know. I had a lot of fun and I'm looking forward to it, dude.
Yeah. All right. We will catch you guys next week. Bye.